This is my first time at Davos, so thanks for having me today. It's very exciting to be here. My name is Mary Draves.
It's really important is this idea of carbon pricing.
Effective carbon price.
Yeah, carbon pricing. I mean,
Yep.
When you start putting a price on carbon, people will take action, right? Because it hits their pocketbook. I mean, I think it's very simple. You start putting a price on carbon, people will take action, right? Because it hits their pocketbook. I mean, I think it's very simple. And we see that as a very important piece of driving the decarbonization. It also, I think, sets a level playing field. I think that, what we see a lot of times is you may have a better environment in one part of the world than another. We need to level that playing field. How do we get to zero carbon emissions? And that's for us as a business imperative, right? And so for me, I mean, it's core and it's fiber to our being. And I think that work makes us relevant. You don't talk about sustainability now, you become irrelevant.
They don't feel that their sustainability practices or their sustainability policies and their diversity, equity, and inclusion are, to the satisfaction that they want as an employee. So I think if you want to recruit top talent right now, you have to, and I mean you have to have policies and practices and show that you're actually doing and making progress.
I think if the last 2 years have taught us anything, and we were talking before we started today about how a global pandemic has maybe adjusted our thinking, but it's also accelerated the need for us to take action and to do very tangible things to combat issues like climate change.
Companies leaning on governments, and governments sometimes in turn forcing or requiring companies to step up and help address common goals. So I take that as a positive dynamic. So
yeah, it was very positive dynamic, and I will tell you, I think that there are so many aspects of climate, about where we need to, bring the full weight to know that we need to achieve net zero emissions, because as we've discussed, the planet can't handle anymore.
The United States will withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord.
Is the commitment I made that we're going to rejoin the Paris Climate Accord as of today.
We have plans to renew our entire manufacturing fleet, right, in a strategic way. You'll see that we announced last October plans to build the first zero carbon ethylene and polyethylene complex in Canada. I mean, that's never been done.
I'm excited to say that I am a keynote speaker, and I'm going to be able to share some thoughts with you about how integration of digital tools, supply chain, sustainability, and ESG all come together. I hope you can join us.
I issued a historic rule banning Wall Street and employers from pouring your 401ks, pensions, and retirement accounts into so-called ESG or environmental, social, and governance investments for political reasons, strictly for political reasons. These people are sick.
ESG.
These poorly performing woke financial scams are radical left garbage that would never be funded on their own and certainly never be funded on their own merits. The entire ESG scheme is designed to funnel your retirement money to the maniacs on the radical left. The rule we issued under my leadership was the first ESG ban anywhere in the world. And I'm delighted that Republicans in Congress and across the country have been waking up to this
issue of ESG.
ESG.
Now, they created this. These things just happen. I don't know where this stuff comes from, but these elites grab it and they really want to impose it on the rest of us. So
ESG.
It's called environment social governance, but basically I think what it's devolved into is a mechanism to inject political ideology.
They'll show you their ESG score. ESG stands for environmental, social, corporate governance. And this is where the woke culture comes from. So they've created this kind of phony baloney rating system that says, well, if you, I'm exaggerating, but if you mention that you are, have a green agenda,
we do solar, we do wind,
and you believe in carbon credits,
carbon pricing,
so you might trade some credit somewhere, then you get a higher score, and therefore you're more investable. And it's very interesting to see how big investors like insurance company, institutional investors, they are steering away from anything that does not have the right ESG rating. And so in order to have investors continue to be interested in the stock, which is important for the company, for its perception, certainly for the officers of the company and the shareholders, you have to move this along continuously. And so it's very simple to see why doing a woke ad as Nike or as any other company, and Pride Month is fantastic because you could. I mean, Pride is easy. Throw up some flags, show the right people, trans, whatever, and you got a high ESG score. It is and so it kind of started with the DEI, the diversity, equity, inclusion.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
In other words, DEI blinded them to reality, so much so they think pictures of black Nazis are a sign of progress. What's next? Googling for pictures of 9/11 terrorists and getting this?
We need to know how to identify the radical leftists, let's say, and separate them from the liberals. And liberals are very bad at that. They're very bad at doing that.
I'm trying.
Yeah. So I would say, here, those three words, if you hear people mouth those words, equity, diversity, inclusivity.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
You know who you're dealing with. And you should step away from that because it's not acceptable. It's a mask of virtue, that's it. And underneath it is something that's truly awful. And it's incumbent on liberal types to start to draw a line between their classic liberal beliefs and these terrible postmodern neo-Marxist ideas that have a pedigree of genocide.
So what is equity? Well, tonight, finally, we know what it is. Equity, it turns out, is racism. It's as simple as that. Equity is racism. And to be clear, we don't mean racism in the sense that ice cream and Shakespeare and math are all now supposedly racist, or that Dr. Seuss is now considered an exalted cyclops in the Ku Klux Klan. We're not talking about the Ilhan Omar Atlantic magazine definition of racism, which, by the way, isn't actually language, but just another blunt political weapon. No, we mean racism in the literal sense, in the way that Martin Luther King defined the term, which is the act of hurting some people and helping others purely on the basis of their respective races. Bigotry, in other words, prejudice, hatred. That's what equity is.